Mr. Stone, let's start with you. At the end of your testimony, you say that our laws should communicate to the citizens that we as a society, as a country, quote, see parenting as worthy, dignified, and important work, close quote. In your opinion, would our laws do a better job of communicating that message if we allowed parents to draw forward Social Security benefits immediately following the birth of a child so that mothers and fathers alike could access their own savings at such a pivotal moment?
Absolutely. I share the view expressed by several people on this panel that having our lack of any solution for leave time is a serious issue, and having the option to do it in an actuarially sound way that's not inhibiting a mother's odds of being hired, for example, because when you foist the bill onto a company, the observed effect is diminished hiring of mothers, which is not the outcome that any of us want. If you pay for it out of public coffers, then you have difficulty with passing the bill, frankly, due to essentially where's the money going to come from. So doing it in a way that's long run, budget neutral is quite reasonable, I think, and is definitely a great improvement over what we have now in terms of communicating to parents and to potential parents that society is with them on this, that you're not doing this work alone.
Yeah, thank you. That is somewhat of the conclusion that I've reached. I've done a lot of work with Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa and with Ivanka Trump at the White House in trying to move that idea forward. The idea here is that this is money that the parents themselves already are entitled to. The question is, what does the government do with that money between the time that it's earned and the time that they happen to retire? It's the belief, it's my belief and that of the individuals I've mentioned, that parents ought to have the option of deciding to tap into some of that at the time they have a child. In your testimony, you speak about the marriage penalties for low-income families in our tax code and in means-tested welfare programs funded by the federal government. You conclude that, in effect, the federal government has put its thumb on the scales against working-class marriage. What are some of the most important policy fixes that you can think of that would help remove the anti-marriage bias in our tax code, in our federal welfare system?
So in the example families that I provide in my written testimony, most of the penalty that they experience comes from the earned income tax credit, as well as to some extent from SNAP and from housing vouchers or housing benefits generally. The earned income tax credit is actually procedurally a simple fix, right? Just double the eligibility thresholds if you get married. The problem is that this costs somewhere between $100 and $250 billion per year, which is, yeah, those are large numbers, right?
You're not going to fund that on couch cushions.
Nope, you're not. So to do this, there's not just a simple fix one thing, right? You'd have to step in and say, well, okay, we cannot afford the current level of generosity for single parents if we extend it in the same way for married parents. So you'd need to do a wider fix. Now, a simpler thing would be to simply, instead of having the earned income tax credit be sort of a backdoor family support program, just replace it with a simpler wage subsidy, and then also route more money through either the child tax credit or some other child-specific focused benefit. It's not clear why we would say because you have children, the government will be even more determined to support your work outside the home. We, of course, want to support people with children, but I don't think our desire to support children is necessarily contingent on them, in the case of the EITC, being unmarried and working outside the home. There's no clear rationale for this structure. So the EITC is a big one, but you see similar problems in every means-tested program. And so you'll have a similar issue with, really, you can't just change one or two thresholds. You have to, statutorily, in most cases, rewrite the whole program.
Thank you. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that Congress passed in 2017 includes a doubling of the child tax credit and an expansion of its refundability to cover the payroll tax liability and counteract the parent tax penalty. In your written testimony, you wrote that a model family, Liam and Emma, trapped out of wedlock by the marriage penalties in our tax code. So this couple you described, Liam and Emma, are effectively trapped out of marriage as a result of that. You note that the only tax provision that did not penalize them is, in fact, the child tax credit. So how could this family have fared without the child tax credit expansion? And why is it important for the rest of our tax code to treat Liam and Emma with similar fairness?
So in this case, what happened was that when in this case, Emma is the one who I have as the custodial parent before marriage, and she, in claiming two child tax...
So I mispronounced that name? I thought that was an appropriate...
Was it Liam and Emma, I
Emma.
think?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think what I just picked the most common male and female birth names of 2018 and assigned them. So,
Got it.
So she's the custodial parent for these two children, but her income, which it's a modest income. I think it's like $16,000 is what I put in. But it's not enough for her to actually get the full refund, the full non-refundable portion of the child tax credit. Now, once they get married, once Liam and Emma marry, their combined income is enough. And also because they get married and their EITC is smaller, they can sort of score more refundable on the other side because those two offset to some extent. You can't, depending on your income, you can't always get the refundability of both in the same, or the non-refundable section is offset. So in this case, actually, the child tax credit expanded in generosity when they got married because of how the non-refundable portion interacts with the refundability of the earned income tax credit. So it's sort of some thorny math. But this family, they lost money on the EITC, was their big loss, right? That Emma was getting $5,000 before, but when they get married, I believe they drop to none or virtually no EITC benefit. And at the same time, they lose some means-tested benefits on the other side, which is to say that the tax code is saying, even though you two perhaps love each other, even though you two have jobs that they're not making large amounts of money, but a couple making $36,000, $37,000, $38,000 is, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to have the American dream. Maybe they'd like to be raising these children together and would like to be married, but the tax code says, sorry, if you get married, you're going to lose $10,000.
We shouldn't be punishing them for that.
Right. We're punishing responsible decisions that I think everyone in the room thinks these people, they want this. It's not the state's job to get between them and raising their children together.
Right. Thank you.